Hello, a very happy Wednesday and welcome back to the We Are Careers Show, your fortnightly CPD snippet for careers professionals, both based here in the UK and beyond. And I say that particularly with an emphasis on, as our guest today is joining us all the way from Melbourne, Australia. We will get round to introductions very soon. Now, today's episode, we're going to be talking about something which, is not necessarily a topic in and of itself, but a really, really interesting story that came out of the career development community. And the question we're going to pose is, how does doodling help inspire an international community of careers enthusiasts? So that is the topic we're going to be discussing with today's guest, who we'll be introducing very shortly. But for those of you who may be watching for the first time, very warm welcome. This is the We Are Careers Show. My name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional and RCDP with the Career Development Institute here in the UK. And I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic co-host, meet Sabiha. So, Sabiha, I'm going to ask you how you're doing, but I know it could be better today, could be better this week.
I could. I've sort of kind of picked up a lurgy and a bug and it's kind of kept me down, but nothing, guys, nothing would keep me away from our show, I've got to say. And especially because we have got somebody, as Chris kind of hinted at, from down under that's come to join us today. So, I mean, we couldn't have done it any better. So here I am. Perhaps maybe you are feeling a little bit under the weather today. And what are you doing? I mean, for me, this lifts my spirit. This makes me feel connected to my community. It sort of kind of inspires me. So, for me, I'm going to jump into this. But what are the things that you do to, when you are maybe feeling a little bit run down, or maybe you're feeling a little bit depleted emotionally or physically? What kind of things do you do to kind of keep your spirits up, your levels up? As Chris mentioned, we've got a very unusual topic. So we want you, yes, you, the viewers, our regular and our sort of kind of first-time viewers, to join in with us and explore this topic with us today, because it isn't necessarily something that you would necessarily think about, but we've got a published author with us who's going to be exploring this with us. Now, you might be wondering, how can doodling help inspire an international community of career enthusiasts? Well, that's exactly the question that we're going to be answering today, as well as exploring our amazing guest author's book, The Big Book of Career Doodles, all the way from Australia today. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet Sabiha, and I work with international job seekers, helping them land their next dream career in whatever country that they are desiring to work in. I also am the creator of the I Am Thriving Career Coaching Program, which is where I work with other international coaches and I help them create even more transformative career coaching experiences for their clients so that they get amazing results for their clients. Now, if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button on whichever platform that you're watching us, please make sure that you do, because we do need your help with this. We want to get this show out to as many career professionals as we possibly can. And you help us by doing that, by subscribing and by hitting the like as well, because it gives us an idea of what shows and what topics and themes land with you so that we can get even more amazing guests. Now, at this part of the show, we like to do what we refer to as the careers cheers. And this is where we love celebrating, yes, you, our audience, as well as those of you that are perhaps watching for the first time, the amazing work, because there is such a breadth and depth of talent in our industry. So we always like to pause a second and celebrate the amazing talent that we have. Now, I know, Chris, you've got some great names for us in today's Careers Cheers. So who and what are we celebrating today?
We have got some great careers cheers, and some shameless self-promotion as well. So we'll kind of come on to that. So first of all, first careers cheers today goes out to, is it loading? Oh no, it's a banner. That's not what we want. We'll change that. Our first careers cheers today goes out to Caroline Green. So again, we will share this properly. Let me actually do this so that we can actually access this properly. There we go. Caroline Green, fantastic. And this is really for her work on the inaugural Careers in Careers Celebration Festival, which took place yesterday. So if you were able to attend, you'd have been privy to a fantastic sort of day of CPD, reflection, celebration, and recognition of the careers profession. Huge amount of work went into kind of putting this together, both in terms of kind of the regular, consistent communication with attendees and delegates and speakers, but also just in terms of the promotion that everyone will have seen Caroline doing through social media over the last few months. So a massive well done, both to Caroline and to all the supporters and volunteers and speakers who took part yesterday. So massive well done.
And can I ask you, Chris, on that note, say for somebody who's watching right now and going, oh man, I missed it. Maybe they registered and weren't able to sort of kind of connect. Oh, and funnily enough, we've got Caroline in. Hello, Caroline.
If they did register, then they're going to get access to all of the recordings. If they weren't able to attend for any reason, if they'd registered and bought a ticket, not to worry, you'll get access to everything. If you weren't able to attend or you didn't sign up or you feel you missed out this year, then stay tuned and certainly follow Caroline on LinkedIn, because she will be posting more about what could be to come in the kind of Careers in Careers Celebration Festival future. So do check that out. Our second Careers Cheers is very linked to this. So this was a big kind of congratulations to all of the nominees and winners from the inaugural Careers in Careers Awards, which was set up by Caroline. Huge congratulations. Far too big a list of nominees to read out. Such a fantastic lineup of people that were nominated for the awards. But I will read out the winners because it's only a short list and does include me. So I'm going to mention myself first so I can get away with the embarrassment. And then also mention fantastic, well-deserved winners from Progress Careers, Chris Target, Catherine Jennick, Bella Doswell, and Kerry Senator. Well done to all of you. Absolutely fantastic. And well done again to Caroline for setting those awards up in the first place. And then our final Careers Cheers is going out to a very special member of the CDI, to Claire Johnson, Head of Professional Development and Standards for the CDI, for all of the work she's done to help develop ethical and professional practice across the sector. That nomination comes from Liz Rees. Claire, many people in the CDI will know, recently sort of has taken a bit of a step back. So she's reduced her, what has always been a massive workload, but really is someone who often kind of gets unsung for all the work they've done progressing professional development in the sector. So a massive Careers Cheers to Claire, and many thanks to Liz Rees for the nomination. And those are our Careers Cheers for the week.
Wow. I mean, I think there's going to be, and I'm sure, and join in with the chat, by the way. We love hearing from you, everybody. So if you're hearing about anything that Chris has already mentioned so far in the Careers Cheers, use that chat box feature, join in the conversation. Perhaps maybe you've got questions for our guest, who I'm going to be shortly introducing, that you want to have questions that you want to put, that you would like for us to put to him. Then again, let us know, join in the conversation. This show is just as much about sort of us and the guests as it is about you. It's about creating engagement and giving you the opportunity to be able to access these, amazing guests that we get to sort of kind of bring on. To be able to explore a whole host of topics. So speaking of topics, you heard Chris and I both mention, we're talking about career doodling and what that means and what that can look like. So I want to head on over to our guest today. So Naishadh, okay, for those of people that have perhaps maybe hearing from you for the first time, or maybe have come across your work, but it's sort of kind of in bite-sized form, what would you sort of kind of share with our audience today about what you're currently working on, and what sort of was the passion behind that? What sort of kind of inspired you to do the work that you are currently doing at the moment?
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Chris, and meet Sabiha, and congratulations to Caroline. I've been following, with a bit of jealousy, the kind of collaboration that UK career practitioners, have been creating, and I have been very vocal about that within my association also, about that. It's just very heartwarming to see the kind of collaboration and the innovation that is coming out of UK, with Catherine Jennick to Liz to Chris, your newsletters and everything. They're just absolutely amazing. So, really, this is really a kind of what we say. I never envisioned to be recognized, and coming and talking about this stuff. Few years back, when I stumbled upon doodling. To answer your question, Sabiha, I was a visual learner, and I think over 3/4 of us are visual learners. But I only recognized that very late in my career, that I would have been a great engineer if I was taught visually. But I was an absolute crappy engineer because I've never seen an engine in my life. So I did not even understand that. But that's past. But I was always kind of thinking of, how do we make things easier for people to understand? And COVID hit, and I had plenty of time on my hand. So I took on, and I used to follow a lot of creators on Twitter, and I would always feel a sense of what we say, the awe of how they were able to communicate very complex concept in an absolutely easily understandable way. So I took on a couple of doodle courses just for me to get doodling, um, just for me to start drawing things. And then I started to copy other people's work, and I say that completely, honestly, that I used to copy beautiful work by someone called Little Buddha Doodles, and she's in Europe, and she draws absolutely amazing Buddha and all those philosophical doodles. And I would copy that, and I would draw that, and I would just do something about it. But then I eventually said, okay, now I've done enough of copying. Now let me experiment things. So I started to experiment with simple concepts. And the first doodle that I drew that got a lot of attention was the job search paradox one. That I think, Chris, you reflected on that doodle as in the book, and that got a lot of attention. So that encouraged me. Okay, so people are liking this kind of stuff, so I'll continue. And I continued and continued without even knowing what it would turn out to be. And I think that's how most of us really start. We don't know the shape that this is going to take ultimately. And then I continued to experiment with different metaphors to different objects, and whatever comes to me. I think one of the best way to describe is that whenever I go out for a walk, I would come back with a concept, because I'm constantly in that inquiry of thinking and what can we do, and things like that. And then I would look at some other people's work and say, okay, wow, this is a great way to explain stuff, and I will experiment with it. And eventually people started to go, warming up to that, and people started to enjoy that, and people asked me if they can use this in their practice, and I would say, yeah, why not, just use that. I mean, that would be such a joy that people use your creation to help them, to help their job seekers. And I said, no, go ahead. Even though if you don't name me, I'm okay with it. I know this is not a Beatles music that I have to worry about making millions of dollars out of there, right? So that's how eventually it started, Sabiha, to answer that question.
I love that. I love sort of kind of how you describe your journey, and we've had so many guests on the show that have talked about this sort of kind of, it's not a straight line, it's sort of higgledy-piggledy. And also as well, I love how out of necessity, out of your own frustrations, out of your own struggles of learning, because the way that you were being taught was not like necessarily inspirational for you, and it wasn't conducive to you. So you were going to yourself, okay, either I can complain about this, or I could quite easily, and I can see Chris is bringing up there on screen for people to kind of see just an example of some of the work that you have done, and referencing to the post that you sort of kind of talked about. And it's just interesting, isn't it, that how often through necessity, like you could have quite easily, Naishadh, just gone, okay, it's a problem, and I'll just do nothing about it. But you chose to do something productive about that, and now that work that you have produced is inspiring others. And I love the generosity as well, Naishadh, of yours, where you're just saying, okay, look, I'm not going to hold on to it, I'm not going to be I'm just going to put it out into the universe, put it out into the world, and let others sort of kind of develop their own sort of versions of this as well. And I know Chris sort of kind of wants to jump in, because I know Chris has got questions for you as well. But before I do, Chris, can I just bring in, there's a couple of comments that are coming through, and then Catherine Jennings, one of the names that Naishadh, that you've mentioned, that this TED talk from Sunny Brown highlights the power of doodling and how it can improve our comprehension and creative thinking. And this is something that I know I talk about as a career professional with my clients, as I'm sure all of you do, and I'm sure viewers, do you talk about creativity and regardless of what sector your clients are looking to work in, that creative thinking? And I do genuinely think, I find myself sometimes doodling and not even realize that I'm doing it, right? I don't know, does anybody else do that? Do you often sometimes find? We've got another Facebook user here saying as well, how wonderful to have such a talent for drawing and doodling, making it have value and meaning. So Chris, I know we've got a whole host of sort of questions as well. Naishadh's book is one of the most beautiful. Catherine just went on to comment.
I include this because it tees us up very nicely, I think, for kind of some of the stuff we wanted to talk with Naisha about, which was, you've set the scene for us there, Naisha, around that kind of how you got into doodling, and it takes us maybe right to kind of the cusp of the book itself. And I guess, as Catherine's mentioned there, that example of how international collaborative careers work can actually look like. So for those who've maybe not come across the Big Book of Career Doodles before, I think you've got a copy with you to flash in front of us. We will also, again, flash up the link on screen if anybody wants to sort of check out the book. But yeah, tell us a little bit more then about how the book came into being, and I guess how it ended up becoming such a sprawling sort of international community, and not just within Australia. Yeah.
So there are two reasons. One is that I'm lazy when it comes to writing. I'm not a great writer. It is still very difficult for me to express myself with words. I can express myself quite beautifully if given a chance to talk to people. But word is not something, and especially English is not something that is very natural for me. So even though when I started to write resumes, it was very difficult for me to adapt to the way that they wanted me to write. So that was one reason. That was one of the reasons that I would not want to write, 100 pages of that. I would, but then it came about because of the engagement that I used to receive from the LinkedIn posts that I did, and from UK career practitioners to Australia to US, and they would say, okay, I really loved it, and this is my reflection on it. This is how I perceive that. And that was coming out of just because few people found it really interesting. They would immediately get attracted to that. And that's how it started. And then back in last year in May, one of my colleagues in a conference said that you should put this as a resource. That would be a good idea for career practitioners. And it kind of stuck to me that, this is a good idea. And as I said, I would not rather want to write it all the pages by myself. Well, and the second reason was that there were so many people who found it valuable. So I thought maybe this is an idea for me to try it out and see if other people are equally crazy that I feel about this or not. So that's how I just one day, without even thinking anything, I just drafted an email and sent it to Chris and to Catherine and to Liz and some other people in UK and Australia. And you know what? I was just absolutely heartwarming. Like within 24 hours, I got 15, 20 people who said, yep, love to do that. Absolutely, Naishadh. Now, then the problem was which doodle will be picked up by who. And that was something that I never thought of. So I created as you know, Chris, I created a Google form and I asked people to put their preferences on first, second, and third. And how many people would do that? In my head, I thought, if people agree to one, that is marvelous. But people did 2 and 3 and 4, doodle writing, their reflections on it. It was completely heartwarming for me. Obviously, it took a lot more time than I anticipated. So we started the process in August or September of last year. And then it started, but then I just dropped the ball between December to February. Then I picked it up again. And then we ultimately finished that product in June and published it. But I think when you talk about community, because that's a very important thing, I think I unknowingly or not unintentionally created that community because I felt that this is just not my work. Obviously, I enjoy this and I definitely want to be known for that. But I always believe in that knowledge. You can only expand on the knowledge if you share that knowledge. There is no point in keeping the whole thing to yourself, because how much can you really accumulate? That's one of the Eastern philosophy of Hinduism, that you're going to spread it. If you spread it, it's going to come back to you probably 3, 4, 10 times. And that's what I'm right now enjoying, that the love and the respect and the recognition that I'm getting from all across, all the career practitioners who follow my work is just absolutely heartwarming, to be honest.
Yeah, and as you say, Nish, it's you're absolutely right about it. Kind of really sort of catching fire, I think, in terms of certainly kind of in the UK. I know there was a period at least where you were prolific with kind of getting these doodles out, and probably before you had to start putting the book together because that must have taken so much time. And I remember so many careers professionals in the UK that I was talking to saying, "Oh, have you seen the latest doodle?" and those sort of things.
Yeah.
And why do you think, I guess, this kind of approach resonates so much with
Mm.
people, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of what role they're doing in the careers community?
Yeah, I think because of the simplicity of stuff. As we know, the most creative ideas are simple ideas. I remember watching, I don't remember, but back in my university days, I watched a TED Talk was fairly new at that time in India, and we would get a CD burned with all the episodes on there, right? So I remember that there was something on Apple's laptop, and they had that if you put the the power cable, and if you run through it, the computer won't fall down because it's got magnet into that. And that kind of stuck to me, that how simple it is, like how ridiculously simple that idea is. So that's what I feel is that this idea sticks to people because it's simple, and secondly, it makes sense. It just makes it easier for people to understand, because as you know, sometimes we tell clients about career change and job search and everything else, and they feel, you know what, I've heard this before, right? It's like, what new spin can you bring it on that is, that's the thing that I struggle with. Now, I'll give you a short story. One of my friends' brother, we were sitting that was his anniversary, and all were drinking. I don't drink, but he was drinking. It was probably, a few drinks down. And he said, Naishadh, I've not asked you, what do you do, man? Like, what do you do? And I said, I do career counseling, blah, 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 but I also do doodling. He said, what do you mean by doodling? Right? And I then showed some pictures. And one picture, he said, stop. And he watched that photo and said, God, this makes sense to me. It took 5 seconds for him to make sense, even though he was few drinks down. So that shows the simplicity and how it communicates that message. And that's what I feel people get attracted to that.
Totally. I can really, really resonate with that, what your point that you're making there, Naishadh. Can you, audience, are you resonating with resonating with the message that Naishadh had, which is about taking often complex ideas and presenting them in a pictorial way that simplifies what it is, the point that you're trying to get across. And it crosses language as well, isn't it? Because that's the great thing, isn't it? Like you spoke about this, Naishadh, as well, saying that English isn't necessarily your first language, and so you might not necessarily be comfortable in that in that form of expression. So having a way to sort of express what's in your heart and what's on your mind through an image, a picture, and I have to say, for somebody who isn't, I mean, did you ever do graphic designing? Because some of those images are no, okay, wow, so that's definitely a natural gift.
I think that there's a mistake there. I think people can draw small computer. In my view, what I have done is drawing is the simplest thing, because I can I can find a clip art on fish and can draw a fish. There's nothing brilliant about it, right?
Oh, you saying that, but I'm going to pump you up, because trust me, if you saw my fish and your fish, I am telling you, there would be complete difference.
That's right. I agree partially, but my point that the idea was to communicate, not particularly be
Exactly.
super specific about that this looks like a pencil or does it look like a boat or not. Because people will get that. People will get it. But it's the message, it's the metaphor, that what it represents, that I feel is what I have kind of what people like about that. Not particularly drawings. Now, but for the book, because my drawings were all hand drawn, I got an artist in India who really kind of developed it. But even for us to get to the imperfection of it.
Mm.
Because first time he drew, and I said, no, this is too perfect.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like what I have drawn. So he had to kind of deliberately make it imperfect to give people that sense of that this is what this is how it feels like. It's incomplete.
You didn't want it too manufactured. You didn't want it too polished. You didn't want it sort of like, like in this day and age where everything is filtered on social media and everything is like the drive is to make it look perfect. And I love that because there's imperfection. There's beauty in imperfection. It's going to annoy me now. I'll come back to it later. But there's a Japanese saying, isn't there, where they put back broken crockery because they
yes, that's correct.
Because the idea behind it is that there's beauty within that sort of kind of putting together. And I just want to kind of bring in some comments talking about obviously your sort of kind of your message. I've got here Leanne Hamley who's saying love the doodles. Caroline has jumped in to say brilliant book, another fabulous resource for the career profession. Thank you so much. And this is it, isn't it? It's about having as different ways as we possibly can have as career professionals to be able to engage, because ultimately we're serving our clients, and what are the client's needs? How does the client need us to sort of kind of connect and communicate with in order for us to have the transformative coaching, whether that's on a one-to-one, whether that's in a group setting, regardless of age, because like you say, I think you're right. I don't think that we ever get too old, do we, for sort of kind of pictures. And I guess sort of kind of bringing now as we wrap up today's show,
sure.
Through your doodles and other careers work, you've become a well-established voice in the international careers community, as well as sort of kind of one of the top voices on LinkedIn. And you've talked about this, but it'd be really great to sort of kind of sort of end on this, which is what advice would you give to other career professionals who are looking to sort of kind of broaden their networks outside of their sort of kind of home countries and want to share their ideas with a wider audience? What sort of kind of tips and advice would you have?
Yeah. So I think the tip and advice is to follow the same advice that you give to a job seeker, right? It's not nothing different, because we tell our job seekers to go out of comfort zone and pick up a phone call and send an email and do an informational interviews and all those things that we tell them. But I think sometimes it doesn't come from a place of lived experience. It comes from a place of that I know exactly what to do. And just do this, man. Just go and do this. Come back to me. So that's what I feel, that there's an opportunity for us to do that. And secondly is to give it a go. And I liked in what what they say in the design thinking book, the Design Your Working Life. They say that you don't need to kind of have audacious goals. Keep very, very achievable goals. And just clear the deck every day. Clear the deck. You don't have to have that that thing. And the last thing is, as I think, Chris, you showed that doodle which was I don't know, it was 700,000 views on that particular doodle, and I also could not believe. Very simplistic analogy of everyone's career is different. Everyone's career growth is different, but there is such. I have to remind that myself every day, by the way, because we do get anxious daily about the deficit that we have and how we view ourselves and everything else. Then that's what I would say is that what, just give it a go. It's okay. The water is safe. Everybody else has jumped into it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's such great advice. I think it's, as you say, that idea of kind of making connections, building networks, communities, it creeps up on you, doesn't it? And I know James Clear talks a lot about that idea of consistency. Sahil Bloom talks a lot about consistency. And it's one of those things that can sound quite trite, quite nebulous, kind of, but actually, whether it's the doodles, whether it's producing a newsletter, whether you regularly post about something or regularly put on something like a webinar or a training series, it's, as you say, by that process of doing, you start to accumulate, don't you? It kind of builds up and it snowballs. So it's
exactly.
Yeah, and agree. The water is safe, definitely. We can guarantee.
Absolutely.
Some doodled sharks, maybe, but no real sharks, hopefully. So, nice. Thank you so much. Honestly, we've had some lovely comments in the chat. As always, we've run out of time, as we always do. But if you have been watching this, you'll have seen us put up on the screen many times the link to the Big Book of Career Doodles. Do go and check it out, and the link to Naishadh's LinkedIn profile. Do connect with him. Do check out and follow all of his great work, including the doodles. So that brings us very nicely towards the end of the show. We do, as always, have the news still to come. So I'm going to go, without further ado, back over to Sabiha and say what is happening with the CDI at the moment. What are our CDI news stories for the week?
Oh, well, there's a whole host of things. You'd think that now that we're approaching Christmas, that the CDI would be slowing down. Not the case whatsoever. I actually feel as if they are ramping up their efforts. I think they're planning on going out in 2023 with a bang. And so that brings me on to a program that was initially started, I'm going to say about 5 years ago, and they are now sort of kind of reigniting the program, and that's the mentorship program that the CDI has, and they are currently looking for mentors to take part. So if you want to become a mentor for the CDI and help shape another professional's career, head on over. There's a link on screen at the moment that you can go and find more information. Claire Johnson is the person in charge of that. Then story number 2 is the CDI AGM. It's, I think, less than 2 weeks now we've got. For those of you now, obviously this is primarily aimed at those of us that are members, but if you are not a member yet and you would like to join them, but of course, by all means, head on over to the CDI website and look for more information about this. But the AGM is taking place in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be taking place on Monday, the 27th of November, between 3:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. It is being done online. So those of you, in case you're panicking, thinking, oh my God, I would love to go, but I'm not going to be able to physically go, don't panic. It's a Zoom meeting, and it's also free to attend as well. Now, the agenda and papers will be sent a little bit closer to the time, and you'll be able to download them before the meeting, which will also include the annual report from the Chief Executive and the Chair of the Ethics and Professional Standards Committee, as well as the final accounts as well. So you can see transparently exactly what the CDI have been up to and what that has looked like for 2023. And then finally, my news story is December. As I said, CDI are not letting up whatsoever. They have got the CDI Conference for Careers Professional organised on the 6th of December. It is going to be online. There are still tickets available. Head on over to the website where there's more information. There are over 25 plus workshops, speakers, seminars, and a whole host of sort of kind of informative ways of sort of opportunities to enhance and develop your CPD points. So those are my news stories for the CDI. Chris, what did you pick for us this week for your general news stories?
Thanks, Sabiha. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say, if you come to the CDI conference, you're going to catch both of us, right? We're both speaking at the CDI conference. So
yeah, we are.
Shameless self-plug.
We are.
We lost the link momentarily there, but again, if you're interested in becoming a mentor, Sabiha's just mentioned this, there is a LinkedIn post out at the moment on the CDI LinkedIn page. So do check that out. As mentioned, Claire Johnson is the person to contact. All of the information's on the post that you'll see on the screen in front of you. And they're going to be advertising from January, I believe, for people who want to become a mentee and want to be mentored. And that will be for starting in April 2024. So do keep an eye out for that in the new year as well. News stories from me. So just 3 very quick ones. The first one is Brad Minton's Your Career GPS podcast, which I think is approaching 100 episodes or something like that. So in celebration, I think Brad's kind of coming back in and bringing back some of the old guests. One that he's kind of doing at the moment is with JP Michelle from Canada. So quite a lot of UK professionals will know about JP, the Spark Path Challenge Mindset work that JP is doing. So this kind of really focuses this podcast around JP's approach of the world needing you, being quite mission focused, challenge focused rather than sort of particularly job focused. So it should be a really interesting conversation. So highly recommend checking that podcast out if you get the chance. Another thing that is kind of coming back, is the Squiggly Careers Skills Sprint. So this is from the folks at Amazing If. In the summer, they had this kind of skills sprint, 20 days in a row, short little micro podcasts of about 7 minutes each, all focusing on a different career skill, whether it was curiosity, creativity, resilience, all those kind of types of things. I actually did it in the summer. It was really interesting. It was kind of a chance to sort of do quite bite-sized CPD and reflection. And they're kind of launching it again for Lifelong Learning Week. So do check that out if you haven't come across it before. And finally, there is a really interesting article this week on the Institute of Student Employers website, all about why early talent recruiters are starting perhaps to kind of broaden their approach as we look to the future. So things like declining birth rates, particularly kind of in the UK, skill shortages across various regions, leading to this idea of actually, will talent teams become total talent, not just looking at early career talent, but also career changes, more focus on internal development, skills improvement. So a little bit of a look maybe of how employers are thinking about things to come in coming years. So do check that one out as well. So those are our news stories for the week. And all that's really left to say is do join us next time around. We are back on Wednesday, the 29th of November at the normal time of 12 o'clock. And we're going to be speaking with Carla Hoff from Lightcast all about how careers professionals can do LMI differently. Really look forward to seeing you all then. A massive thank you for joining us. A massive thanks to Naish again for taking the time to be with us here today. Thank you to all of you who are either watching live or on record. And we will see you in the Career Sphere in 2 weeks' time. See you then.